Hey there, take a quick second and just look around you. The room you're sitting in, the screen you're staring at, the reality you wake up to every single day. Well, what if I told you that, according to ancient Gnostic texts, none of this, literally none of it, is actually real? What if you, me, and everyone we've ever known are basically trapped in a collective cosmic sleep? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most provocative, mind-bending, and honestly fiercely debated theological frameworks in all of human history, the Gnostic Cosmos. You see, the ancient Gnostics looked at the world around them with all its savagery, natural disasters, and just the sheer volume of human corruption, and they drew a pretty radical conclusion. They believed humanity is literally enslaved by illusions. They argued that we are caught in this deep, programmed slumber, completely unable to see the true reality of our suffering and this corrupted world. According to these texts, this isn't just some pessimistic philosophy, it's a literal diagnosis of the human condition. And to break free from this matrix-like existence, we need a radical, jolting shift in our very consciousness. So, if we're all fast asleep, how exactly do we wake up? Well, that brings us to Section 1, What is True Gnosis? Waking up from the cosmic illusion. The Gnostics proposed an ancient, highly specific solution to this whole cosmic entrapment thing. They believed that to break our programming, we desperately need to acquire something called gnosis. Okay, let's dive into this. Gnosis comes from the Greek word for knowledge, but we have to be incredibly careful here. We're not talking about the kind of knowledge you get from, reading a textbook or sitting through a lecture. No way. True gnosis is direct, lived, experiential knowledge. It is a vivid, profound spiritual experience that historically has been described as whispers to the wise. It's like a sudden revelation that temporarily tears the very fabric of our material reality, letting you glimpse the profound, luminous truth hiding just behind the curtain of everyday life. To understand why we desperately need this gnosis in the first place, we have to look back. And that brings us to Section 2, the tragedy of Sophia, the cosmic origin story. This mythological blueprint doesn't just explain the universe, it maps out the deep psychology of the human soul. And this epic drama, it takes place far, far away from Earth. Long before the first humans even existed, there was the pleroma. Pleroma translates to the eternal fullness, and it's the absolute highest divine realm, the true cradle of eternity. Within this perfect fullness lived powerful divine manifestations known as eons, and among these eons was one named Sophia. Now, Sophia was a very young and incredibly powerful eon, but because of her youth, she was positioned at quite a distance from the absolute primordial light. And honestly, this distance set the stage for a completely catastrophic cosmic mistake. Let's see how this builds into an epic tragedy. So one day, Sophia sees this deceptive flash of light reflecting deep down in the endless abyss. Deceived, she actually mistakes this lower reflection for the supreme divine light. Driven by desire, she descends deep into the chaos, passing through what the texts call 12 gates, plunging further and further into the void, until she's finally halted by a boundary power named Horus, which means the limit. At this terrifying boundary, Sophia fractures. She literally divides into a superior aspect that yearns to return to the pleroma, and an inferior aspect left stranded in the agonizing depths of chaos. And that massive cosmic fracture leads us right into Section 3, Archons and the Demiurge, the architects of our flawed reality. Down in the abyss, the inferior Sophia is basically at war with herself. Her dark, intense emotions of suffering actually condense to form our physical universe, the four material elements of fire, earth, water, and air. And from that suffering, she births something truly terrifying. From Sophia's profound trauma emerges this monstrous, hybrid consciousness with the head of a lion, known as the Demiurge, or Samael. This is honestly perhaps the most shocking premise in the entire Gnostic worldview. They believed the actual creator of our physical material universe is not the ultimate divine, but rather this monstrous, ignorant, and deeply flawed being born from an accident. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive paradigm shift the Gnostics introduced. Think about classical philosophy like Plato's work. The Platonic demiurge is a benevolent master craftsman who creates a beautiful, orderly universe. But the Gnostics? They completely flipped this on its head. Their demiurge is utterly ignorant. He is completely unaware that anything, like the beautiful pleroma or his mother Sophia, even exists above him. Because he creates blindly out of his own limitations, the world he builds is inherently flawed, producing a reality completely steeped in suffering and evil.
Operating in this total blindness, the demiurge decides to structure his newly created material realm. To enclose this flawed reality, he creates exactly 7 planetary spheres.
But here's the catch. These 7 spheres are definitely not empty. They are governed by entities known as archons. The archons are sadistic, inferior cosmic rulers. Think of them as parasitic authorities or wardens of our material prison. Their primary, obsessive goal is to impose limitations on creation, to isolate human souls, and effectively lock the cosmic doors so that absolutely no divine spark can ascend back up through those spheres to the eternal pleroma.
Meanwhile, poor Sophia manages to take refuge in the 8th sphere, hovering just above the demiurge and his archons, completely unseen by them. From there, she issues these desperate, haunting pleas. In the ancient text, the Pistis Sophia, we read her cry, "Rescue me, O light of the lion-faced power. Do not leave me in the chaos. For they desired my power, saying to one another, let us take all her light." Up in the pleroma, the higher aeons hear her agony, and they actually begin plotting a grand cosmic rescue mission.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the Gnostics completely, radically inverted traditional biblical myths. Take the story of Genesis, right? In the traditional view, Adam and Eve eating the fruit is humanity's tragic, sinful fall. But in the Gnostic version, the serpent is actually the hero. Sophia uses the serpent as a vessel to deliver liberating gnosis to humanity. The fruit opens Adam and Eve's eyes, allowing them to finally see the repugnant, oppressive nature of the creator gods who made them. It wasn't a fall into sin, it was literally humanity's very first moment of waking up. So how do we escape? We find out in Section 4, the path of salvation, breaking the archontic scheme. If we live in an imperfect world ruled by blind archons, how do we break this deep, instinctual programming that governs our lives? Well, the Gnostics laid out a very specific path. The absolutely crucial point here is understanding exactly what you are made of. According to Gnostic thought, you are divided into 3 parts. Your physical body is born into and tied to this flawed material world. Your psyche, or soul, is the turbulent battleground, the staircase where the forces of the archons constantly fight for your attention. But deep inside, you possess a spirit. This spirit does not belong to the demiurge. It is a literal, uncorrupted piece of divine light, a spark originating from the distant pleroma itself. Because your spirit comes from completely outside this material world, the knowledge required to free it, that gnosis we talked about, must also come from the outside. You can't find it just by looking at the earth. Therefore, the pleroma sends high aeonic messengers, messengers of light like Christ, who descend through those planetary spheres to deliver the external, sacred instruction required to guide your divine spark back home. And the totally fascinating thing is that the Gnostics didn't just sit around debating this as some abstract philosophy, they put it into active practice. Archaeology has uncovered undeniable evidence of Gnostic rituals and theurgy. Look at the Chenubis magical gem, a talisman featuring the demiurge with a lion's head, a serpent's body, 12 solar rays, and 7 spherical eggs. Or the ancient 1st century Ophite diagrams mapping out the 7 circles of the archon names. Today, if you visit a museum, you'll likely see these artifacts brushed off as mere superstition, due to a lack of symbolic understanding. But to the Gnostics, these were highly practical tools, sacred passwords, and rituals designed to actively bypass the cosmic wardens. The Gnostic texts present an ancient worldview that is as unsettling as it is deeply empowering. They totally reject the idea that human beings are fundamentally broken or sinful, and instead suggest that we are basically divine prisoners of war, suffering from a sort of cosmic amnesia. Our ultimate salvation doesn't come from blind obedience to the architects of this world, but from looking inward to discover the alien spark of the eternal pleroma buried inside us. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to consider today. If our everyday reality is just a heavily programmed illusion, what part of you is truly awake right now?